our resident expert. For all of that, let's just jump right in. And of course, that is Yat Siu. How are you, Yat? Nice to see you.
Very good, and good to see you as well. I mean, obviously, it's interesting just because the world is obviously sort of shaky in different ways.
Yeah.
But grateful to be here.
Hey, listen, I think the conversations around what's happening in the industry right now are most important because of what's happening. You've got to get people out there kind of explaining all the real things that are truly occurring. What are your thoughts right now when you look at what's happening in the Middle East, primarily Dubai? And I know you've kind of have some correlation to Dubai as well. Are you seeing a potential flight of, all the people that have been
Yes,
kind
of
of
course.
centering as Dubai as their home base, now starting to look elsewhere in the world?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that many of the regions in Asia, whether this is Hong Kong, Singapore, are certainly looking at this in a way as an opportunity. Dubai has obviously taken quite a bit of that financial sort of capital and sort of, especially the growth sort of, entrepreneur capital, shall we say, and the financial capital into the UAE.
Right.
And of course, a lot of them, particularly ones from overseas, are sort of, not looking to stay in the Middle East for the short term anyway. And so you've got like really what we're currently witnessing kind of two types, right? The first type is, let's call it the tourist, right? So he was a tourist going into UAE, zero taxes, great environment, lovely place. And so, they're going to Bali, they're going to Bangkok, they're going to Phuket, right? That's kind of one type of nomad, right? And then you've got the other one, which is not really sort of thinking nomadic, but they're thinking more like, okay, where should I put my base as an operation? And so Hong Kong and Singapore are definitely coming through. I think what's happening in the Middle East to me is a signaling of something else, which is, I think, the beginning of a much more sort of, let's call it Asian/Chinese age, right? And by that, I mean to say that, China is viewed as stable right now, right?
Yeah.
Hong Kong is viewed as sort of a safe place to do business under the protection of a very safe and stable place. You don't have to worry about that, right? There's no worry that there's going to be sort of attacks in Hong Kong or China, knock on wood, from some, basically from an Iran that's upset, right? because they're effectively allies in that sense, and or at least friendlier, shall we say, right? And so right now this conflict, whereas there's even talk around, like I have, hey, you know what, America is safe, but don't go to crowded places, be careful, whatever, right?
Right.
All those type of sort of crazy conversations that you wouldn't have had before, true or not, right? It creates a kind of angst that didn't exist before, right? And that uncertainty is unsettling. But I look at Dubai and Hong Kong very similarly. For those who might remember, Hong Kong had its crisis, with COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And it took about 5 years for Hong Kong to come back to where it is today, and from that. And I think with Dubai, hopefully not as long, but I think they'll go through a similar phase where people will remember, right? But then hopefully when things settle a little bit, so definitely do not write off Dubai, but it will be, I think, a tough couple of years just because of the confidence that has been shaken a little bit.
Very interesting times within all this. Speaking of what's happening in the Middle East, I want to play a clip. This is a meme war that apparently has come to a head between the Iranians and, of course, none other than our own President Trump. Take a look at this one.
US President Donald Trump may have announced a 5-day pause to planned strikes on Iran's power plants, but on social media, a different kind of war is intensifying.
The level of online trolling. The White House has also turned to sports, sharing videos featuring baseball stars hitting home runs.
Iran has opted for humor, pop culture references, and trends.
And the memes have been relentless.
Is Trump urging allies and global leaders to help secure the Strait of Hormuz? The intention was to mock Trump's latest response to a question about who will eventually control the strait.
Maybe me. Me and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is.
Posted a picture with a car having 2 steering wheels.
Iran in particular has really upped the ante recently with these kind of extravagant AI-generated Lego-themed videos. It feels more like a game.
The secrets are leaking. The pressure is rising. We locked on the target. And now you are high, yeah. LOSC. Yeah, we spelling out your name. Bleeding for a puppet while you you shaking in this sweet. LOSCO. Taste the ash of defeat.
The characters are portrayed looking at what appears to be Epstein files.
Man, I tell you what, the one thing I will say is that whoever is running these meme campaigns are very tied into American culture. They're not missing a step in terms of how and what you have to do to press a button. So, and that's what a meme is designed for.
We have to sort of bear in mind that sort of American culture is permeating almost everywhere, with the exception of perhaps North Korea, right? So the result is that you'll get a lot of people who understand that culture and know what to push. But also, I mean, I think ever since Trump sort of became, I mean, it probably happened earlier anyway, but how everyone's talking, are we actually living in a simulation? Is all of this anyway real? That kind of stuff. Just because sort of everything that we thought was sort of a norm basically is not a norm anymore. It's completely sort of, thrown out because of what happened. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, basically what happened in Venezuela, while positive for the Venezuelans, the sheer, let's call it chutzpah, right, that just took place, right? And then of course the meme videos that came out of the White House related to that, right? Yeah. Right. So they're the ones who sort of were the kings of that, right? So they kind of they opened that up, right? And so it's more like, okay, we can do that too, right? And so people learn, right? So 50, 60 years ago, we used to call that propaganda, right? Yeah. So you had propaganda, and then other companies had different kind of propaganda, and they would throw leaflets with, caricatures or whatever. This is just the modern
next
version
generation.
Of that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Let's talk about next generation for a minute, because Animoca now is investing in Avalanche. As you can kind of see here on screen, couple of things. No financial details been disclosed yet, but Animoca's got, of course, a big network in Asia and Middle East. What can you share about this, Yat?
Well, I mean, first of all, we've had this conversation with Avalanche for quite a while. They were actually quite committed on things like consumer expansion, which is basically our sort of big focus here. And so obviously, we were talking about both the Middle East and Asia, broadly speaking. It's really about sort of reaching out to the audiences that are fastest growing there, which is the youth, right? Despite the regional conflicts that is sort of affecting people. People still have to go on their lives. You still have a young population, doesn't change, whether this is in Turkey or in UAE or in Saudi or wherever, right? They're all still basically active. They're, playing games, right? They're doing stuff. Their interest in blockchain and digital technologies continues to grow, right? Even more so with the whole sort of AI direction as well. And it was very sort of tactical for us, right? And so that's the thing. We're going to drive users into that ecosystem. And of course, it's very classic for us is that if we think we can help them grow, then of course we want to have a stake in it, right? And that's basically sort of how the deal is constructed.
All right. So you want to stake in it. You see some retail opportunity here. Does this mean that Animoca is buying Avalanche, the token, or is it primarily?
Yeah. I mean, we're investing, right? And just to be clear, Animoca continues to invest even in this market. I mean, we've done several investments. You'll see that. Very heavy focus in the sort of agentic space as well, which we think is going to be the way in which we onboard basically, the next big wave. With Animoca Minds, we actually have a very, very strong product that actually can literally, your mom could sort of, sign up for it and she can have an AI agent. Right. I think we're the only one in the world that has a platform like this, but it comes with a wallet off the back. Right. And what's really powerful about this is that this wallet basically can do wallet to wallet payment directly with other AI agents. Right.
What project is this that you're talking about?
It's called Animoca Minds. Animoca Minds.
Okay. Animoca Minds. Okay. Are there other agentic platforms that you're working with in conjunction with this, or is that the primary focus?
Any agentic platform we could work with because of the fact that agents can talk to agents. So I'll just give you a simple example, right? So you can see that's my swarm, right?
Okay.
And I have 131 minds, which is basically, you can think of them literally like 131 open claw type sort of institutions. I can literally just sort of sign up by sort of launch them literally by just typing an email or, talking to one of my minds, and it just sets it up just instantly. When you sort of go in, you can see how they're connected. Literally, this is kind of the agent swarm, the structure around this, right? The whole thing about how you harness them together is basically what happens when you're actually using things like Perplexity Computer or Claude Cowork.
Right.
They're actually running agents themselves, but here you can basically customize each individual agent, and they have persistent memory. This is the platform that allows you to basically have millions and millions of agents, billions of agents potentially, but millions of agents in pretty much an instant. In comparison to if you wanted to do this, everyone's launching open Claude VPSs, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
But you can't. Can you imagine the cost of having a million open?
Well,
Claude
it's not.
VPSs?
Yeah, it's not scalable.
It's not scalable.
We've
Exactly.
dropped a bunch of those already. They're very efficient. I agree to you.
It's not just sort of the distribution of compute power, which they can do by sort of giving themselves tokens. It's the fact that they also are able to share skills within a network. So, because programming is so powerful, literally, you can get the mind to basically build sort of an application for you that they can use within the ecosystem. And it might cost you, let's call it $5 or $10 of inference cost, right? The next sort of mind can then literally rent or use your skill.
Is this available now?
It's live right now. Go to animocaminds.ai, just sign up right now, and you're live, right?
Okay,
and
perfect.
it's and the thing is, I myself get surprised at just what it can do, because the powerful thing about AI is the fact that it's sort of, it can do so many things that you can't imagine quite yet what it is. So even with a single prompt over an email, I can launch a fleet of, 10 or 20 agents doing things, right? And the key is just, are you good at the prompting? But once you have that set up, it's powerful. And so we just need to make that more easier for people to understand the power of the prompt. So right now we have some basic ones. You can go in, you just click, and say, hey, I want a research agent, I want this. But the cool thing is that you can go straight down to the individual agent and alter their DNA, as we call it, and then they talk to each other as well, and then they can they can sort of support each other. So to us, we're thinking right now that everything we talked about, the metaverse and about gaming and about sort of blockchain and so on, was really we humans were the POC for the agents, right? Because when you think about it, right? Most people will say they're going to have 3 to 5 agents. I mean, I have over 100. If actually once you start using agents, right, you're going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And by the way, a lot of people are still thinking in the old LLM terms. It's like, well, is it going to be ChatGPT versus Claude versus Gemini? Yeah. And I think that's all wrong. They're all going to work together. The LLM is going to be abstracted, right? That's going to be sort of more of a commodity. But my agents work way more powerful because they are connected to Perplexity Computer and Gemini.
Yeah.
Because they are themselves don't have the same autonomous nature versus an AI agent that we have with Animoca Minds. Also, it's wrong to think that there's a lot of people are sort of saying, oh well, this one has only small memory, so it's only for the moment, and then we have the persistent memory. But people are forgetting there's a whole spectrum right in between. Like, for instance, I might just need an agent for 1 week. I don't want to call them disposable agents, but literally you throw out an agent to do a task for a week and that's it. That's good enough, right? But if you have to set it all up and customize and do things, it's completely crazy.
I got to try it.
Yeah.
I got to try it. We're going to do some stuff with it. I want to flip over to Clarity for a minute. Obviously, that's heated up here in the U.S. You look at the 2 major markets, I think, that will get affected by this, obviously the U.S., but also Hong Kong could be huge. If Clarity doesn't pass, what is going to happen in Hong Kong? Is this going to become a safe haven, do you think? What do you think?
I don't actually think that Clarity Act not passing in the U.S. is going to have a huge impact, because the regulatory side from the SEC in the U.S. has already made a few points very clear.
Right.
From an innovation standpoint, people would still sort of say, well, at least I feel safer in America, right? So that, to me, I feel like not safer, but safer than before, right? And frankly, when it comes to investment capital and investment opportunities, for those type of projects, the U.S. is still one of the strongest places. That's not to say that Hong Kong isn't, and Singapore and Japan aren't strong markets as well. But it's not a huge game changer.
Okay.
When I was talking about Clarity Act, if it passes, what it will do broadly around the world is, particularly in America, is that it will allow companies to basically tokenize themselves faster because they have a framework, right? However, the innovators and builders already in crypto are kind of used to. They're already doing it. They just don't want to be persecuted, right? And so with the current framing, you don't have the issue of the persecution. So I think Coinbase, or particularly Brian Armstrong, is fighting very strongly, sort of on the yield aspect of it. And I feel like it's a little bit of a, like a Pyrrhic victory, because it doesn't really matter as much as I think people make it out to be, because over time, I feel like my opinion, shall we say, is just let it pass even without the yield, right? Because, all territories around the world, when they talk about stablecoin, sort of the legislation, including Hong Kong, for instance, it's yield is not allowed, right? But you can have other ways to do it, which is basically what you see with Circle and Tether anyway, where you have to deposit it and stake it and this and that kind of stuff, right? So there's ways around that. And the second thing is that once it's out there and in the hands of people, then they're going to demand it anyway, and then it becomes
they're going to
something
figure out ways to do it. Yeah.
Well, also the political will shift when the people who are now having stable coins and saying, hey, you know what, I could actually have that.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like the passive nature, I think you'll see more flight, meaning people that will just figure out other ways to work the same,
Yes.
USDC.
That too,
But
yes.
the average, where I think this hurts American, and anybody really worldwide, is just the average Joe, because they're not as sophisticated of an investor. They don't understand about vaults. They don't understand about DeFi. And it's going to take them months, if not years, to maybe even get caught up to speed. And that's if they want to, because many people just aren't interested. They wanted kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing, their money market model. Yes. And I think that's what the banks are protecting against is the status quo of the people who I say are just not, they haven't been, red pilled.
Yes, but they don't. So. I guess where I was trying to get to is that they're not red pilled, but their agents don't need to be red pilled. They know it already.
That's true.
Right? So so what's going to happen is that not everyone's necessarily going to know that they have to sort of put it in a vault or something. Yeah. But they do know that when they go to the agent and say, please find me the best way to get.
That's true. Totally agree. Yeah. If the agent will just do it. There. That's possibly a faster path. I do agree with that.
Yeah, because that's what's exciting. Yeah.
That would be okay. I'll concede that argument. If AI gets involved and people can get involved with AI, the agentic side will figure this out anyway. So okay, that makes sense. In terms of what's happening in Japan, which is amazing to see just the amount of innovation that they continue to push, especially in the financial rails, versus Hong Kong. If you were looking at Asia right now, I mean, there's only one New York in the United States. In Asia, which one's going to be the New York of Asia?
Well, I mean, if you think about capital market size and if you think about internationalism, I would say Hong Kong is if I were to put it I think Hong Kong is still very much the undisputed sort of New York of Asia, right? Yep. In terms of Hong Kong Stock Exchange, it's also international. English it's legal in primary language, right? It's right. It's sort of location-wise, geographically, it's often described as the pearl of Asia because it's right in the middle, in the southern tip of China as well, right? Sort of attracting all that. I mean, Singapore, from a finance standpoint, is quite powerful, but when you look at the size of the stock exchange, it's just like no comparison. No, like Hong Kong is.
But what about Japan?
Well, so Japan is domestic. So the point is, yes, Japan is a great market, but Japan is very Japanese. I mean, you don't find foreign companies listing in Japan, for instance, and it's very hard for sort of international companies to sort of do stuff there because the language isn't there. That isn't to say it isn't an important market, right? And certainly under this new regime, which is quite crypto friendly, it's pushing forward in a big way there. So that's there. What is interesting in Japan versus elsewhere is that institutions are driving essentially the tokenization and digital asset space more strongly than the sort of consumer side, right?
I see.
Which is very different from, say, Korea or from other parts of Asia.
For sure. Hey, we got to talk about Lily Liu.
Of course. Good old Lily.
And what she said. This came out. Lily was talking about gaming on blockchain is just not coming back. First of all, is she wrong? Or is this was this taken out of context? Tell me.
No, so I actually think it's interesting because I actually think first of all, I think Lily's incredibly smart and savvy.
Yeah, she is.
And I think she also knows that because last time she said something like this, I think it got a lot of attention. So she's made several other sort of let's call them controversial statements. So I wouldn't necessarily take her statement quite in the context of this. Because of course, Lily is one who sort of very, very deeply understands that actually financial generally systems is really the underpinning of society, broadly speaking. In fact, we invented writing.
For sure.
The Sumerians invented writing for an account of ledger to basically say you own this and you own that, right? So it's quite fundamental. And so if you were to take it very, very sort of literal, saying gaming isn't on blockchain isn't coming back, that's like saying, no game company is going to go become a public company, right? Or it's because financial rails is essentially translated to every part of the industry, right? And so that means that you're going to have every element that's going to be touching blockchain. Gaming that is covering 3 billion people who are already basically using digital financial rails, just not open ones.
Yeah.
Basically just becomes running on the blockchain. I mean, what is Polymarket, right? I mean, Polymarket is in effect a kind of a game. The difference, though, is that most people who are using Polymarket don't even know or care that it's using the blockchain.
Right.
But they're still doing it. And I think this is where gaming is going to go as well, which is, in the sense, the gaming that we think of, because I think of Polymarket as a game as well. And I think of GameFi as gamified finance. I mean, how much of the sort of financial ecosystems, particularly on Solana, when you think about Pump Fund, when you think about sort of Meteora, Jupiter, and all these things, have effectively taken the lessons of gaming, making it fun, making it accessible, making it interesting for the youth, having leveling systems and all these type of things, and just essentially put sort of, wrapped it around the world of finance, right? So I actually think gaming on blockchain is going to come back in a really, really big way. And I think it's going to come back, maybe not in the way that we expect. It never does, right? But it's going to be, it's not going away, and it's going to be it's going to be sort of coming in a pretty dominant form. And we'll call it gaming, but it won't be, I think the thing is we're trying to sort of fit the gaming image we have of, here's a first-person shooter, and we're going to basically sort of plug in sort of blockchain without thinking about what it really means.
Right.
No, I don't think that would work as well. However, what will work really well is that the financial systems that are used on the back of powered by blockchain, there's transparency on the trade of these items. The virtual currency I'm using in-game basically is powered over blockchain rails. I will be able to sort of trade tokens or sort of trade those virtual currencies. I could maybe get credit on those virtual currencies that are on the back, right? Players can have leverage on them if they wanted to, right? I mean, those are the elements that I think make sense. I mean, people forget that, Roblox pays out billions and billions of dollars to gamers while taking basically 70% of the profit, right? I mean, that in itself is a huge value extraction that
terrible.
You put on blockchain, makes it just more powerful. So there's so many reasons. I could go on forever. Yeah.
Well, and I think maybe the point that she was getting at, some people are kind of backing her up on this, is that it won't come back the way it was before. To your point, which is that we're going to see a lot of new functions of how it's going to work.
Well, and what is gaming really? Gaming is a part of our culture. It's a huge part of our culture, right? And by saying it's not so by excluding it, and again, I don't think that's what she means. By excluding it, right? Then you're basically saying we don't want that community there, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
But we're also saying we don't want to bring culture into sort of the economic framing of blockchain, which is not feasible because, in fact, the sort of what makes an economic system function more powerfully is the fact that it has culture, right?
Yeah.
And gaming is a huge part of that culture, right? So I think, again, I don't think it's but I don't believe that's quite what she means. But also, I think she knows that when she says that, she'll light the fire, which she has done.
It did, yeah.
And I'm getting, I may have to succumb to this because everyone's like, oh yeah, you need to say something because you're the gaming guy. You should say something. And it's like, it's Lily being Lily, right? But maybe I need to respond just for fun. But either way, we're not worried.
I like it. Hey, I want to play a clip for you because we're going to flip over to something that Jensen Huang said about AI that has got a lot of people questioning kind of the focus here. Take a look.
Well, how do you feel about that criticism?
Well, first of all, they're completely wrong. It's not post-processing at the frame level. It's generative control at the geometry level.
Well, that's a stark contrast to what Jacob Freeman told YouTuber Daniel Owen. With DLSS5, the underlying geometry and textures are unchanged. He straight up said, yes, DLSS5 takes a 2D frame plus motion vectors as input. And here's the key part. all by analyzing a single frame, which is the complete opposite of what Jensen Huang said. Jensen Huang either is fully ignorant about the very technology that he's leading the charge of, or he just full on lied.
All right, so this is in reference to the animation. I don't know if you saw some of the videos that were out there where it made it, kind of showed the before and after of the function. I mean, it's fantastic, but the way that Jensen addressed it really kind of, I think, hit the gamer market in essence. If you look at this now, could attacking gamers hurt NVIDIA in terms of a price long term?
So there was a time where there was a distinction made, I think, between sort of gaming, as a brand, right? But for NVIDIA, it is still the premier, let's call it sort of GPU for gamers. But at the same time, we have to remember that when NVIDIA was that brand, it was really the early adopters who were quite fanatical about that type of stuff. Whereas today, a huge number of gamers don't really care. Like they don't really they probably haven't even watched that clip, right?
Okay, all right.
The other thing also is that despite the fact that he made a boo-boo, shall we say, Jensen's just a really nice guy, right? And so from his image standpoint, he has a lot of goodwill. So maybe I don't know,
he could
why he
come
said what he
out
said.
too and maybe correct this.
Yeah. But the thing is that he has a lot of goodwill. Everyone thinks of him as a really nice guy, right? I think it's different if he was abrasive and had a lot of
it'd be different.
So right, and I think so. A lot of people are just so it wasn't as big of a brouhaha as perhaps as I think some people make out. I could be wrong about this, but right now it hasn't really sort of spread a lot because again he's got a lot of goodwill, and this is kind of the world we live in right now, which is there's facts which. Unfortunately, we're kind of a little bit in some cases in post-truth society. Look at Trump and look at everything that's going on there, right?
Sure.
And so you're judged against the character. And so I can totally imagine people saying, "But Jensen's a nice guy. It's okay. Let's move on to something else, right?"
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like it. Listen, we're going to go into a lightning round with you. Quick questions, fast answers. Some is fun and crazy. We're going to lead off with the first one here. Trump signs an executive order drafting degens to fight the Iranian meme war.
I love it, but I don't think so.
No, even though he may have some degens working for him right now. If
I'm sure.
Yeah, if clarity doesn't pass, there will be a flood of crypto bankruptcies. Many people looking at Gemini right now.
I think they're two different questions. I don't think it's related to clarity, so my answer would be no. So meaning that if a company was to bankrupt, they would bankrupt regardless of clarity.
Regardless of clarity. Okay.
Yes.
Animoca Brands publicly endorses clarity. Are you publicly endorsing clarity today?
I'm endorsing clarity. I think get the bill passed because it's good for the world, and I think, and honestly, I'm like, it's a Pyrrhic victory that you're trying that Coinbase is trying to fight for. I don't think it's as necessary, especially for everything that we spoke about earlier. Yeah.
Well, I am still on the fence with it, only in the sense that because I'm very, very protective of personal privacy rights. And when you get into DeFi or self-custody, that's the area that I'm most concerned with, because we haven't seen the language yet coming out of this. We don't know what's there.
That's true.
Meta's AI slop will ultimately end the same way as their metaverse slop ended. I'll just answer yes.
Yes, I'd love to say yes, but I think it's more in between.
Okay,
because the reason why is because the LLM models and so on that that they're putting out is
second time's a charm, maybe. But I think it's going to be a third time.
Yeah, and also with Manus and so on, they've got a pretty good team there. So I think they got a shot. It's going to be they've got a shot.
All right.
Yes.
YouTube, Disney, Tom Cruise killed Sora, DeepSeek. This is where we had some copyright-free AI slop. Season is over.
They're killed. No, I don't think they killed.
I mean, because Disney didn't renew the deal with ChatGPT or OpenAI. That was pretty much the end of Sora.
But I also think that, well, first of all, video, generally sort of generated video is a red ocean. If you think about all the stuff that's coming up. If you think about all the stuff that's coming out from China, I don't think that YouTube and Disney, again, my view is that decision would have probably been made from, like, if you're OpenAI.
Regardless. Right? Okay.
Yes, regardless. Because if you're OpenAI, what are you worried about? I think if you're OpenAI, you're mostly worried about making sure you have enough compute. The competition is not is not seed dance. The competition is Anthropic
Yeah,
and Gemini, right? And what are they fighting on? Not video, right?
Right.
So from a tactical standpoint, I would say it makes sense to just say we're focusing on this because other people do video quite well. Let them deal with that. We're going to try to win
with it.
Win the more important fight, so to speak.
Win in the battlefront. This is an interesting angle because there was, of course, the failed attempt on TikTok, but a consortium of crypto companies and VCs will attempt to bid on OnlyFans because OnlyFans up in the air right now.
So yes, I think that's true. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
We're on the
I think
same
they
boat
will.
there.
They're going to try. Yeah.
World Liberty Fi, Nuremberg trials begin 9 months. This is talking about obviously the political.
Yes. So I don't think, well, if we talk about Nuremberg trials, I think there will be attempts to do something, but Nuremberg trials, I think, will happen post-Trump's presidency.
After. Okay. So
Yes.
not during the, after
Not
they do
during,
the
not,
midterms.
yes, exactly.
All right. So I won't answer that then. Okay. Very cool. Netflix buying Ben Affleck's AI platform signals that Netflix will open the platform to all creators soon to rival YouTube.
This is a really interesting one, right? Because UGC content, broadly speaking, is, if you think about it, the largest growth driver, in all forms of media and entertainment, whether it's gaming like Roblox, obviously YouTube, TikTok, right? And Netflix is a behemoth, but, they also didn't end up buying Warner for, other reasons because there's a competitive bid, which was kind of insane. This sort of made them double down essentially on, I think,
something else,
community content.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes sense. I don't know that
they'll open up
to. I think they won't open up to all creators. I don't think that's their DNA.
Okay.
But I do think they're going to open up to there's going to be, I think we can expect to see like a program, almost like in the early days when you had like Apple sort of Apple developer program, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're allowed to make content and they're allowed to do stuff though. So I think they'll. Netflix will still go for the sort of somewhat more curated as opposed to just YouTube, let's go, everything, right? It's otherwise it's going to affect their sort of search algorithm on the content and so on. But yeah.
And you look at the primary broadcast networks, they have started to move into entities where they're trying to get into digital and more content creators. So basically trying to cannibalize what a lot of creators have built on either it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever it might be. And they're trying to bring those things mainstream into app delivery systems. That has happened in a lot of the majors. CNN has a program out. Fox now has a program out. So I just wonder if Netflix is maybe going to become one of those.
Oh, I think that part wouldn't surprise me, right? Because for Netflix, just at the end of the day, you want to have as much content as you can, right? And really, the whole point about content capture is twofold. One is I have special exclusive content that only I have, so you come to me.
Yeah.
And then but I also happen to have all the other content that you want anyway. So why don't you just stay here, right? And that's kind of what's happening, which is why you have so much content that is available through all platforms that is the same. And then you have a few banner sort of Game of Thrones type of stuff, or whatever it is that you sort of put forward. So the same thing. But that to me, I think is actually positive for the creators. Because they have more distribution opportunities in a way.
Yeah, for sure. This is a good one. The new Polymarket fee structure is a death blow to Kalshi because this is kind of a Robin Hood approach. The people with very little get a better fee than the people with a lot. What do you think?
I don't think it's a death blow. It's competition because I think Kalshi is not. They're not going to sit back and just say, well, okay, fine, let's.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, we're done. That's kind of the first thing.
It's going to be competitive, though.
It's going to be competitive, but I think the other thing also is that they're actually currently covering niches of audiences.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that once you've got an audience being sticky, despite the fact that there's another option out there that may be cheaper or maybe better, the pure fees themselves, especially when you talk about sort of the outcomes in question, doesn't seem to matter as much. And you see this in other areas, whether this is like casinos or whatever. And therefore, I do think that just like we see with DeFi as well, right, is that you probably have them playing in both fields. As in, the same person who's in Polymarket is also on Kalshi because all he's really doing, he's tapping into two pools of liquidity, which is deep, rather than just the one because of the fees. So I think the fees are not the most important thing.
Interesting. Okay, I like that take. L2s die after the next Ethereum upgrade. So Glamsterdam coming, if they haven't already. What do you think?
No, I don't think so. But I think, when people talk about sort of Vitalik's, and certainly, our partnership with that most recent announcement with Avalanche is certainly sort of would be contradictory for us if we said yes, right? But I think the other point is, a lot of people sort of misread or misunderstood, I think, Vitalik's point around L2s, which is he's not saying that L2s are irrelevant. He's saying that L2s need to be specialized or good at something to have meaning and purpose. At the end of the day, an L2 is still cheaper, right? Does it mean we're going to have as many L2s? That's a different question, right? I think we will have less L2s, right? We'll certainly have less launches of L2s.
Why did the Ronin and most gaming chains fail? Bad games or failed attempt to get TradFi?
So I would say, I think it's a failed attempt to appeal to trad games. That's too wow. If I had to choose between the two, I mean, my general lens, I think has to do.
Do you have a third option?
Well, the third option to me is reputation of crypto.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
Because and you see this today with a lot of the sort of, with the AI stuff that's happening as well, where a lot of people, we understand how important blockchain and sort of is for digital sovereignty and for agents. But people are just so turned off with what's happening.
Don't you think that's going to change, though? Yeah.
I mean, imagine if people sort of well understood that Polymarket was blockchain based and it was a wallet and that kind of stuff. What would their opinion be? I mean, how many people even know?
Probably be even know.
Polymarket. Yeah, it's right. So I don't think it's I think it's really, so that's why I picked a appeal to trad gamers, because really what happened was that people just didn't like crypto as much, right? And so that's the reason why in Asia it had much more adoption, because they didn't have the same issue with crypto as they had in the West. But in the West, right, they didn't like crypto, and because they didn't like crypto, they didn't even touch the games. It wasn't even an option for them.
Right.
And no, because there are some good games. It's just they didn't, and so when you look at Gamey, for instance, right, they didn't have there's blockchain on the back, but basically very few people know, and so it has tens of millions of users, right? So it's just a different framing.
Last one, Animoca IPO officially finalizes 2026.
I can't comment on that. You know that.
I'm going to say no, and it's not because you don't want to. I think the climate right now is just really bad for crypto IPOs.
It's a tough climate, that is true. But again, we've made an announcement, and as you know, we can't comment.
I know, I understand. One way or the other. But we like to have fun with this anyway. You know that.
Thank you. Of course. Yes.
Anyway, listen, it's always fun chatting up with you. You have great insights. Obviously, your exposure there in the Asian market gives us some very unique understanding that I think a lot of people in the market right now need to really kind of get what's happening. So thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.